So what are you going to do about it? Ada?
I'm sick of laughing here.
I have something to confess us.
Before we begin today's powerful story, I want to share a little word of advice with you. Listen closely to this story because you're about to discover the most important truth. How you treat people, regardless of their background, their status, or what they can do for you, reveals everything about who you truly are. This story will show you exactly why that matters. Now I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. Let me know where in the world this story is touching your heart. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Real African Tales so you don't miss more powerful stories like this one. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Now, let's begin. Lagos, a city where glass towers pierce the sky and luxury cars glide past street vendors. Where million-dollar penthouses look down on tin-roofed markets. Where wealth and poverty don't just coexist, they collide. On a Tuesday afternoon in Victoria Island, a black Mercedes limousine pulled up to Lumière boutique, one of the most exclusive fashion houses in West Africa. The door opened, and out stepped Evelyn Hart, wife of billionaire property developer Richard Hart, socialite, philanthropist in name only, and a woman who wore her status like armor. Her heels clicked against the marble pavement. Her designer sunglasses caught the sun. Every movement was calculated, every glance measured. Evelyn didn't just walk through life, she performed it. Nearby, on the edge of the boutique's pristine entrance, sat Grace Miller, a single mother of 28 with calloused hands and tired eyes. Before her, spread on a worn cloth, were handmade beaded bracelets and necklaces, each one carefully crafted during late nights after her daughter had fallen asleep. Grace's 7-year-old daughter, Emma, sat beside her, quietly reading a borrowed school book. As Evelyn approached, Grace stood up, hope flickering in her chest. She had seen women like this before, women who sometimes bought out of pity, out of guilt, or occasionally out of genuine appreciation. "Madam, please," Grace said softly, holding up a delicate bracelet. "Handmade, very good quality, for you or maybe a gift." Evelyn stopped. She didn't even remove her sunglasses. "Excuse me?" Her voice was ice wrapped in silk. Grace swallowed. "I make them myself. They're... How dare you approach me?" Evelyn's voice rose just enough for heads to turn. "Do you see where you're standing? Do you understand this is a place for people of class?" Grace's hand trembled slightly, but she held the bracelet steady. "Madam, I just thought—" "You thought?" Evelyn laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Look at you. Look at your clothes. When was the last time you bathed properly? And you're letting your child sit here in the sun like some roadside beggar?" People had stopped now. Some pretended to look away. Others watched openly. 2 young women nearby had their phones out, angled discreetly. Grace's eyes began to well. "Please, madam, I'm just trying to feed my daughter." "Then get a real job," Evelyn snapped. "Stop cluttering up decent establishments with your poverty. It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing." She turned to her assistant. "Call security. I don't want to see her here when I come out." Grace gathered her items with shaking hands. Emma, tears streaming down her small face, helped her mother. They hurried away while Evelyn swept into the boutique, head held high, completely unaware that her entire tirade had been captured in perfect, damning clarity. If you stand for justice, hit the like button. The video was uploaded at 3:47 p.m. By 5:00 p.m., it had 10,000 views. By 7:00 p.m., it was trending across Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa. By midnight, it had crossed 2 million views. The comments were volcanic. "This woman has no soul." "Billionaire's wife treating people like trash. Disgusting." "Someone find that mother and child. Let's support their business." "Her husband should be ashamed." "Cancel her. Cancel everything she touches. By Wednesday morning, Evelyn's world began to crack. Her charity foundation, the Evelyn Hart Foundation for Women's Empowerment, lost 3 major sponsors before breakfast. Her brand partnerships with luxury cosmetics, fashion lines, and wellness retreats all issued statements suspending their relationships pending further review. Richard's phone rang nonstop. His board members were furious. Shareholders were nervous. The Hart Group's stock had dipped 2% overnight. When Richard came home that evening, his face was a storm of barely controlled rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he said quietly, dangerously. Evelyn sat on their Italian leather sofa, scrolling through her phone, watching her life disintegrate in real time. "It was just some woman trying to—" "Just some woman?" Richard's voice broke its leash. "Evelyn, you humiliated a poor mother in front of her child. On camera, the entire continent is calling for your head. It'll blow over." "The board met today," Richard interrupted. "They want me to step down temporarily. They think I can't lead if I can't control my own household." His voice dropped to something colder. "They suggested you disappear from public life for a while." Evelyn looked up, finally afraid. "Disappear?" Richard turned away. "Figure it out, Evelyn, because if you don't, I will." The next 72 hours were a nightmare. Journalists camped outside their gate. Evelyn's own cousins posted statements distancing themselves from her behavior. Her childhood friends stopped answering her calls. Women she'd lunched with for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Every news outlet ran think pieces. Social media erupted with memes. Influencers made response videos. Grace Miller's story went viral. Donations poured in for her and Emma. A GoFundMe reached 500,000 naira in a day. Evelyn became what she'd always feared most: irrelevant and hated. On Saturday night, alone in her bedroom, Evelyn had a panic attack so severe she thought she was dying. When she could finally breathe again, she stared at herself in the mirror, really looked, and saw a stranger. A monster. A woman the entire country wanted to see destroyed. She made a decision. Dr. Solomon Okoro was known in certain circles as the Eraser. Not because he killed people, but because he made them disappear. Legally, financially, socially. He specialized in what he called radical reputation resets for the ultra-wealthy. Evelyn met him in an unmarked office in Ikoyi. "I need to vanish," she said simply. Dr. Okoro studied her. "Vanishing isn't the same as running. Are you prepared for what that means?" "I don't care. I just need this to stop." He nodded slowly. "Then we stage a tragedy. Something believable. Something final." They spent 3 days planning. On Tuesday night, Evelyn took a private boat from Tarkwa Bay. At 11:47 p.m., the boat radioed a distress call. Engine failure. Taking on water fast. By the time the Coast Guard arrived, they found only an empty life jacket and a floating designer shoe. No body. Just the dark, indifferent waters of the Atlantic. By Wednesday morning, Nigeria woke to the news. Evelyn Hart missing, presumed dead in boating accident. The country's rage softened into something else. Tragedy has a way of blurring sharp edges. She made a terrible mistake, but she didn't deserve to die. I hope she's at peace now. Death is too harsh a punishment. Memorial posts appeared. Some people who'd called for her cancellation now called for prayers. Richard held a tearful press conference. The public, briefly, mourned. But Evelyn wasn't dead. She was in a bus heading to Ibadan, wearing cheap clothes, no makeup, and a fake ID that said her name was Ada. Comment, "I believe in kindness," if you agree. The town was called Oke-Ado, 3 hours northeast of Lagos. Small, dusty, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and strangers stood out. Evelyn, Ada now, rented a single room in a compound house for 15,000 naira a month. The room had a mattress on the floor, a fan that barely worked, and a shared bathroom down the hall. She had no staff, no driver, no one to cook or clean or arrange her life. She had to fetch water herself, carry it in buckets, learn to light a kerosene stove, buy tomatoes from the market, and haggle like her survival depended on it. Because it did. Her hands, once manicured weekly, grew rough. Her body, once pampered with spa treatments and personal trainers, grew thin from hard work and simple meals. Her pride, once towering and untouchable, crumbled bit by bit. Every morning she woke to the sound of roosters and street hawkers. Every night she lay on a thin mattress, wondering how her life had become this. But slowly, something else began to happen. She began to notice things. The way neighbors shared food when someone was struggling. The way children played with nothing but sticks and laughter. The way people greeted each other with genuine warmth, not because they wanted something, but because they were human. For the first time in her life, Evelyn understood what it meant to be invisible. And strangely, terrifyingly, there was a kind of freedom in it. It was a Friday afternoon, 6 weeks after her death, when Evelyn collapsed. She'd been working at a small restaurant washing dishes for 2,000 naira a day. The heat, the exhaustion, the weight of everything, it all hit at once. She felt the world tilt, heard someone shout, and then everything went dark. When she woke, she was on a mattress in a small, clean room. A woman sat beside her, pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. "Thank God," the woman said softly. "You've been out for hours." Evelyn blinked, her vision slowly focusing. The woman was maybe 30, with kind eyes and tired hands. She wore a simple dress and had her hair tied back in a scarf. "I'm Grace," the woman said gently. "You collapsed near the market. No one knew who you were, so I brought you here." Evelyn's heart stopped. Grace. Grace Miller. But Grace didn't recognize her. How could she? Evelyn had lost nearly 20 pounds. Her face was gaunt. No makeup, no jewelry, no aura of wealth. "Thank you," Evelyn whispered, her voice cracking. "Rest," Grace said. "I'll make you something to eat." And for the next 3 days, Grace cared for her, fed her, gave her medicine, let her sleep in peace. Evelyn watched Grace work, juggling 2 jobs, caring for Emma, somehow still finding time to smile, to be kind. And the guilt nearly crushed her. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. It was Sunday evening. Emma was asleep. Grace and Evelyn, still calling herself Ada, sat outside under a dim bulb, peeling vegetables. Grace glanced at Evelyn's wrist and froze. There was a scar there, a distinctive one, shaped like a crescent moon. Grace had seen that scar before. In the video, when the woman raised her hand dismissively, her breath caught. She looked at Evelyn's face, really looked, and suddenly saw past the weight loss, past the exhaustion. "It's you," Grace whispered. Evelyn's hands stopped moving. She didn't look up. Grace stood slowly, her voice shaking. "You're her, the woman from the boutique." Evelyn closed her eyes. "Yes. Why are you here?" Grace's voice cracked. "Why didn't you just ask for help that day? Why did you have to—" She stopped, tears streaming. "Why did you have to make me feel like nothing?" Evelyn looked up, her own face wet. "Because I was nothing. I just didn't know it yet." The 2 women stared at each other across a chasm of pain and privilege. "I faked my death," Evelyn whispered. "I couldn't face what I'd done. I couldn't face you. So I ran." Grace sat back down, trembling. "You ran from shame. I live with it every day." "I know." "No," Grace said firmly. "You don't, but you're learning." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Grace said quietly, "I won't expose you." Evelyn looked up, shocked. "What?" "Running from your sins doesn't erase them," Grace said. "Facing them does. If I send you back to that world now, you'll just hide behind lawyers and PR teams. You won't actually change." "So what do you want me to do?" Grace met her eyes. "Stay, work, learn what it means to survive without power." And maybe, you'll become someone worth forgiving. Over the next 3 months, Evelyn did exactly that. She worked with Grace, helping with her small business making beaded jewelry. She learned to string beads until her fingers ached. She carried supplies to markets. She walked miles in the heat. She learned to bargain, to budget, to cook with scraps, to listen instead of command. Emma, cautious at first, slowly warmed to her. They read together. Evelyn helped with homework. For the first time in her life, she felt like part of something real. A family held together not by money, but by love. She wasn't Evelyn Hart anymore. She was just Ada, a woman trying to be better. But the past never stays buried forever. A visitor to Oke-Ado, a man from Lagos visiting relatives, recognized Evelyn at the market. He took a photo, posted it online. Within hours, the story exploded again. Billionaire's wife found alive, living in poverty. Journalists descended on the small town like locusts. Cameras, microphones, chaos. Grace's home was surrounded, and this time, there was nowhere left to run. Evelyn stood in Grace's small living room, watching the mob outside through the window. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I brought this to your door." Grace stood beside her, arms crossed. "You did? So what are you going to do about it?" Evelyn took a breath, then another. "I'm going to tell the truth." The press conference was held in Lagos 2 days later. Evelyn Hart, thin, without makeup, wearing simple clothes, stood before cameras and the world. "My name is Evelyn Hart," she began, her voice steady but soft. "And I am not dead. I faked my death because I was a coward. I humiliated a woman and her child because I thought my wealth made me better. I was wrong." The room was silent. "I've spent the last 4 months living the life I once mocked. And I learned something." She looked directly into the cameras. "Wealth doesn't make you worthy. Kindness does. Humility does. The woman I hurt, Grace Miller, showed me more humanity in 3 days than I showed anyone in 3 decades. Her voice cracked. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want to do better, and I will spend the rest of my life trying." The government chose not to prosecute. Instead, they mandated community service. 500 hours working with organizations supporting single mothers. Evelyn didn't fight it. She donated her entire personal fortune, 30 million naira, to a fund managed by Grace, supporting poor single mothers across Nigeria. Grace became a national figure. She spoke at conferences, advocated for economic justice, built a thriving business. And Evelyn, she rebuilt her life quietly. She worked, she volunteered. She learned to find worth not in what she owned, but in who she helped. She often visited Grace and Emma. Sometimes they had tea together. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence. 2 women who'd hurt each other and been healed by the same wound. One day, Grace said, "You know, you saved me twice." Evelyn looked up, confused. "I never saved you." Grace smiled. "You saved me from poverty with your donation. And you saved me from bitterness by letting me forgive you." Evelyn's eyes filled. "I think you saved me twice, too. Once from public shame, and once from myself." Years later, when people asked Grace about Evelyn Hart, she would say simply, "She was broken. Then she was willing to be rebuilt. And that's the only kind of redemption that matters." If this story touched you, subscribe for more. And tell me, what would you have done if you were in her shoes?